Newcastle, England. The air is thick with grief. In the summer of 1968, two young boys were found dead. Their killer? Not a shadowy stranger lurking in the dark, but an 11-year-old girl with dark eyes and a chilling calmness. Her name, Mary Bell. This is not a story of a child lost to the streets. This is the story of a child born into chaos, who became chaos itself. White right pointing backhand index, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because on this channel, we don't just tell true crime stories, we peel back the layers to expose the chilling truths beneath. Before Mary Bell killed, she was already dying inside. Mary Flora Bell was born on May 26, 1957, in Scotswood, a gritty working-class area of Newcastle upon Tyne. Her mother, Betty Bell, was a sex worker and frequently absent. When she was home, the environment was anything but nurturing. There were constant whispers among neighbors. Betty had tried to kill Mary more than once. Pills were found. Accidents that didn't quite add up. One report even suggested Betty once tried to give Mary away to a woman who had suffered a miscarriage. And Mary, she began to display troubling signs early on. She would lash out violently. She lied compulsively. But worse, she showed an eerie emotional detachment, a kind of hollowness in her eyes, like a child watching the world from a different plane. Speech balloon, she looked at you like she was looking through you, one teacher later recalled. By age 10, Mary was already known as a bully. Teachers were alarmed but unsure what to do. She would strangle other children as a game, then claim she was only pretending. One day, a group of children were found bruised and crying. Mary had reportedly tried to choke them. Still, no interventions, no therapists, no protective services. No one stepped in. And then came May 25th, 1968. It was the day before Mary's 11th birthday when 4-year-old Martin Brown was found dead in an abandoned house. He had no obvious injuries, just a smear of blood on his face and a bottle of painkillers nearby. Police assumed it was an accident. Maybe Martin had been playing and taken pills. But something was off. A few days later, a group of girls broke into a local nursery and left behind a chilling message written in a child's handwriting. I murder so that I may come back. Another read. We did murder Martin Brown. Police thought it was a sick prank. They were wrong. Just 2 months later, on July 31st, 1968, another little boy, 3-year-old Brian Howe, was found dead. But this time, it was no accident. Brian's body was discovered in a wasteland, covered with grass and hidden under debris. His lips were blue. His neck showed signs of manual strangulation. But what shocked the investigators most was what had been done post-mortem. A pair of scissors had been used to mutilate his body. The letter M was carved into his stomach. Police knew then they were dealing with a killer, and possibly a child. The community was reeling. Parents clutched their children. Schools warned kids not to talk to strangers. But the killer wasn't a stranger. Mary Bell began showing a bizarre interest in the case. She inserted herself into conversations with police. She even visited Brian's grieving mother and asked, "Speech balloon, do you miss him? Speech balloon, do you cry at night?" It wasn't curiosity. It was cruelty. Eventually, a classmate named Norma Bell began to talk. Under questioning, Norma, who had been Mary's friend and accomplice, broke down. She claimed Mary had strangled Brian, then forced Norma to help hide the body. The police were stunned. 2 girls. 1 crime. Mary Bell was arrested on August 5, 1968. The world stopped. A photograph of Mary from that time shows a calm, composed girl with coal-black eyes, almost smirking at the camera. Not weeping, not trembling. In police interviews, she was evasive and manipulative. She referred to herself in third person. At times, she would offer detailed descriptions of the murders, then claim she was only imagining them. Detectives would later say Mary was the most chilling person they had ever interviewed. And she was only 11. Mary Bell's trial began in December 1968 at Newcastle Assizes. Because of her age, the court was closed to the public. But the press coverage was relentless. Prosecutors described Mary as manipulative and intelligent, a dangerous child. But her defense argued that she was a product of her environment, that she suffered from a personality disorder and had no grasp of morality. Norma Bell was acquitted, but Mary was convicted of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. She was sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, an indefinite sentence that would stretch over a decade. Mary was moved from one facility to another, first to a girls' remand home, then to a series of secure units. But she wasn't like other young offenders. She was manipulative, sometimes violent, and deeply cunning. One staff member wrote, "Speech balloon, she is intelligent but devoid of empathy. She talks about the murders as though they happened to someone else." By 1980, after serving 12 years, Mary Bell was released from prison at age 23. But the story doesn't end there. Upon release, Mary was granted a new identity to protect her from the media frenzy. She moved often, assumed different names, and tried to live quietly. But the tabloids always sniffed her out. In 1998, she gave birth to a daughter who didn't know her mother's past until journalists discovered Mary's whereabouts and exposed them. Reporters even camped outside her home. Helicopters hovered overhead. Mary and her daughter fled and had to be relocated once again under yet another identity. A court eventually granted Mary Bell and her daughter lifetime anonymity, a privilege shared with very few former criminals in British history. What makes a child kill? Psychologists have studied Mary Bell for decades. The general consensus is this: Mary was not born evil, but raised in a cauldron of trauma. She was reportedly abused, sexually, physically, emotionally. Her mother allegedly forced her into sex work as a child. Her violence was not spontaneous. It was learned. Still, the calculated nature of her crimes, the manipulation, and her chilling lack of remorse suggest something deeper than trauma. Some experts label her as a sociopath. Others, as a dissociative child, someone who split from her sense of self to survive. But one thing is certain: Mary Bell was a child who became a killer long before she ever touched her victims. The case of Mary Bell remains one of the most disturbing in criminal history, not just for what she did, but for how society handled it. Could it have been prevented? Why were warning signs ignored? And what does justice look like for a child killer? Even today, debates rage on about whether Mary should have ever been released, whether she deserves anonymity, whether her daughter deserved the trauma that came with her mother's legacy. Mary Bell lives today, likely under a new identity, somewhere in the UK. She's in her 60s, and she has never returned to prison. Mary Bell is a name that still haunts the UK. She reminds us that evil doesn't always come in the form we expect. Sometimes, it comes with pigtails and skipping ropes. Sometimes, it's born, and sometimes, it's made. What do you think? Was Mary Bell a victim or a villain? Should child killers be held fully accountable, or do we owe them a second chance?